And it's Batman! Batman!
So as we all know, time is pretty cruel to most things. It's probably crueler than anything else. It's cruel to people, media, ideals, ethics, morals, health, you name it. Time is as mean as it gets. It does not hold its punches back whatsoever. Time is honestly kind of a bully, and time sometimes has not been kind to video games. It's one of those videos. Today we're going to be talking about video games that haven't particularly aged super well. We're going to be talking about video games that might not hold up in the best of light in today's day and age, where modern sensibilities are really at an all-time high. See, back 10, 20, 30 years ago, video game development didn't exactly have a playbook. Technology was less advanced, and what we thought was acceptable back then, we might not find as acceptable nowadays. There's a variety of reasons why a video game might not age well, and today we're going to be talking about 10 games that, in my opinion, haven't aged particularly well. That doesn't mean that they're bad video games, far from it. And for the time, a lot of these were considered incredible, outstanding, and for some of them, innovative even. But playing them nowadays, yeah, it can be kind of hard to come back to, and it makes you really appreciate just how nice some aspects and areas of gaming has gotten, especially when it comes to controls. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I know a video like this is going to spark a lot of debate and a lot of division, so let me know down below how you're feeling about these games, and let me know about some games that you think haven't aged particularly well. Maybe I'll do a part 2, 3, 4, shit. We could be here all day talking about games that haven't aged well. Either way, I hope you'll be there for when I do, and you can be by subscribing, doing that stupid bell thing, and checking out some upcoming videos. As always, any support is truly greatly appreciated. Seriously, thank you all so very much. I also got a Discord if you want to discuss it a little further, drama-free of course, and links to everything can be found down below. So let's get to it. Let's just rip the band-aid off. What are some games that haven't aged particularly well? Well, we gotta start strong with this one, and I'm starting with Uncharted 1. Now, I remember playing Uncharted 1 and thinking it was a pretty decent third-person shooter, but I was more intrigued by the story and characters and cinematic qualities. I always did think though that Uncharted 2 and 3 were like significantly better. However, if you go back to Uncharted 1 nowadays, yeah, it actually has not aged anywhere near as well as you think it would. When it comes to the cinematic qualities, you know, like the presentation, the camera, the story, the characters, the writing, and general dialogue, I think it's actually aged pretty well. It still tells a good story, the characters are still likable, and I think it's still pretty entertaining. But as a video game, yeah, I don't think it's aged particularly well. The third-person shooting is just not great in this game. It feels really clunky. It feels awkward, stilted, and just really imprecise. The cover system is a little clunky as well, and doesn't work exactly like how you think it would, and I found myself getting shot through cover plenty of times. The combat isn't really satisfying, and there were plenty of times where it just feels like a total chore, straight up. I feel like there are several combat encounters that aren't all that well designed either, where the enemies will just ass blast you constantly, and these become more annoying than anything else. I think Uncharted 2 and 3 have much better combat than what the original game had. But that's not my only gripe with it. The platforming is just nowhere near as smooth as the later Uncharted games, and it can be kind of hard to come back to at times. It just feels slow and relatively sluggish. It's not terrible, you absolutely can get used to it, it's just gonna take a little bit of time. And then Uncharted 1 also features quite a number of puzzles, probably the most of any Uncharted game, and these, well, I didn't even like these back then, let alone nowadays. But hey, what can I say? Sometimes I just go straight Neanderthal, Jonathan, and critical thinking in video games oftentimes doesn't go together. And it doesn't matter how much time passes, that's just kind of always been a thing. Despite all of this, I would still say Uncharted 1 is an alright game, but no more than alright. I have heard the PS4 re-release actually really does tweak the controls and makes it feel a lot more in line with the later Uncharted's. I have not actually tried the PS4 version, I've always played the PS3 version. Maybe one day I'll try that PS4 version. I'm certainly not in a rush though. I love Uncharted 2, 3, and 4, but the original, don't got a lot of love for this one. Well, let's keep this going. Here we have Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Now, I love Oblivion. There was that Oblivion remaster this year, and it was pretty great, but I feel like it also just kind of exposed how Oblivion hasn't exactly aged all that well in certain aspects. I would argue that Morrowind, Daggerfall, and even Arena haven't aged all that well in several aspects either. But that's not what today's video is about. I don't need y'all to get the pitchforks out at me. We're just going to talk about Oblivion. Now, Oblivion obviously has tons of great elements to it. but man does this game have some serious 2000s jank to it. Not just with like the NPC schedules and the combat feeling rather weighty and floaty, but also like in the game's internal systems. Do we need to talk about the leveling up? You already know where I'm going with this. The game will just become stupidly difficult if you don't build your character a certain way. This has always been an issue with Oblivion. I feel like this issue is just amplified with the remaster, where by a certain point, if you did not invest points into certain skills, you're just kind of fucked. The enemies are totally going to wipe the floor with you. You can just straight up have a character that is not going to be able to do shit. And I'm sure plenty of people are going to be like, well then just don't build your character like that. Man, what if I'm just trying to have a casual like first time playthrough? Imagine how many people played through this game for the first time and just went, dude, I'm getting totally ass blasted. I can't fucking do anything against these enemies because I didn't build my character a certain way, like I was just playing through the game naturally. You shouldn't have to look up what skills to invest in. You shouldn't have to worry about this. The game shouldn't do this to begin with. The leveling system has always had a bunch of issues to it, and the more you play the game, honestly, the worse it gets. I'm sure plenty of people played the game for a few hours, maybe 10, 15 hours, and called it there. And you know, if you do that, you're just fine. But if you get any further than that, man, and this isn't like the second, third, fourth, 10th time you're playing through the game, you're likely going to run into some kind of issues. And then of course there's the combat, the stealth, and how some of the dungeons just have straight up terrible level design since they're kind of randomly generated. And of course none of these issues ruin Oblivion. In fact, a lot of people argue that it helps make Oblivion more Oblivion. It gives it more charm. It helps it stand out. It's just part of Oblivion's identity, DNA at this point. And you know, fair enough, it certainly is that to an extent, but I'm also able to take a step back and look at this and go, yeah, that hasn't aged particularly well. And I can't imagine newcomers enjoying certain things about Oblivion. And I saw plenty of that with the remaster. People going, man, why can't I do anything once I reach a certain level? And my character's just useless. And it's because, well, the game just hasn't aged all that well in every aspect. Well, let's just keep fueling the fire here with Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Now, when it comes to games that haven't aged well, a lot of people point at GTA 3. I've pointed at GTA 3 many times. I think it's time to point at another GTA. I don't know if people are ready to have the conversation that GTA 4 hasn't aged well, so we're going with Vice City. This game hasn't aged well for almost the same reasons why GTA 3 hasn't aged well. It's aged better than GTA 3. I'll immediately say that. The controls are a little better, and there's a lot less bullshit when it comes to the missions. But despite that, the game still has plenty of areas where, yeah, it hasn't aged particularly well. It still doesn't control great. The shooting is still super awkward. It doesn't feel nice, satisfying, and it really doesn't come together. The driving is good enough. When you're in a car, that is. There are a few moments of GTA Vice City where you get to commandeer some other vehicles, and I'll say these control pretty terribly, especially the little helicopter. This is just awful. And it's maybe like the worst mission in the entire game. There are plenty of annoying missions in Vice City where it just feels like you're set up to fail. And of course, if you die, you pretty much have to redo the entire thing. At the very least, sometimes the taxi shows up and it will take you back to where the mission is. That's nice. But I'm not going to sit here and act like all of the missions are winners in Vice City. There were plenty that frustrated the hell out of me, where I wanted to pull my hair out, and maybe I did, and that's why I had to get the hair transplant. It's all your fault, GTA Vice City. Tommi Vercetti, this is your fault. You absolute son of a bitch. How do you live in Miami and you can't swim? This is just disgraceful. And then, like GTA 3, the game still has plenty of just awkward or janky moments where it just feels off, especially all these years later. Really, the controls in general just feel kind of off. I think San Andreas is really where everything does come together and it actually is aged pretty well. And you can see some clear improvements from GTA 3 and Vice City. I still love Vice City. I think it's a great game. It has a wonderful atmosphere. The music is killer. The story's great. There's a ton of good shit to it. It's a wonderful game. There's a reason people still talk so fondly about it nowadays. But I'll be the first to admit, it's a bit hard to come back to in certain areas. It's a lot easier to come back to Vice City versus GTA 3, but that's not really saying a lot now, is it? We all know Vice City was always better than GTA 3 anyway. I'm sure I've already upset pretty much the entire GTA community at this point. I'll just say, they've all aged better than GTA Advance. So for this entry, I don't just have 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, 5 games, 10 games, I've got tons of games, and these are old fighting games. Pretty much every old fighting game before Tekken 2 has not aged all that well. Outside of like Street Fighter 2 Any fighting game before 1995 just hasn't aged that well. It's the controls. It's the controls for all of these games. The original Fatal Furies, the original Street Fighter, the original Mortal Kombats, the OG Virtua Fighter, and of course a bunch of one-off fighting games. They just don't feel nice, like whatsoever. They are so unbelievably stiff, and doing inputs can be so clunky. And all I gotta say is, spending even a decent amount of time with these older fighting games really makes you appreciate how nice newer fighting games control. Shoot, even fighting games from the late 90s control leagues better than fighting games from the early 90s. Look at games like Street Fighter Alpha 3 or the original Marvel vs. Capcom. They control significantly better than those older Fatal Furies, the original few Mortal Kombats, or really any SNK game until the mid to late 90s. These games, unfortunately, have just been kind of obliterated by time, where as time passes, they become much more difficult to go back to. Like, some of these games just control terribly, and bad controls in a fighting game can absolutely ruin said fighting game. And good luck doing any combos or strings or anything of the sort. Just controlling the damn game can be challenging enough, let alone doing combos or trying to do the fatalities in the original Mortal Kombat. Good luck. These are just absolutely ridiculous. Now, to be fair, these were some of the very first fighting games. They really were establishing an entire genre here. It's not entirely fair to compare these early fighting games to what we got in the late 90s, and especially not what we have nowadays. But time isn't fair. Time is a cruel mistress who could not give two bricks about being fair. Older fighting games, for the most part, just don't control all that well, and they are going to take a bit of time to get used to, especially if you like any fighting game from, the late 90s to now. Yeah. Despite that though, I'll always have a soft spot for Mortal Kombat 2 and 3. I've always loved both of those. So here's another mid-2000s throwback with Sonic and the Secret Rings. Now, when thinking about games that haven't aged particularly well, I started thinking about the Wii and its motion controls. While the motion controls were certainly novel and the casual audience really loved them, looking back now, a lot of games haven't aged particularly well thanks to the motion controls, and I think Sonic and the Secret Rings is really a pitch-perfect example. While I don't think the game would be all that great by itself without the motion controls just absolutely ruin it. So you have to use the motion controls, and you have to hold the Wii Remote sideways and control Sonic like a car, where you have to tilt the Wii Remote left and right to move Sonic. You can't use like an analog stick, you can't even use the D-pad, you have to move the whole ass Wii Remote left and right, and it's just as unresponsive as it gets. It's not the only motion you do with the Wii Remote either. You have to shake the Wii Remote and so much more, and these controls just absolutely ruin the game, straight up. They are unwieldy, they're super sluggish, they're clunky, it feels like shit, it's super imprecise. Like, the platforming and just basic movement in the game are unbelievably terrible. It's so unfun to control Sonic in this game, and if it's not fun to control your character in a platformer, it's pretty much ruined from the start. You basically just took all the wheels off the car and you're expecting to go somewhere. And I've heard of plenty of people getting used to the controls and maybe even enjoying it a little. Well, not me. I've never liked the controls to this game, and as time goes on, the game honestly just gets worse and worse. When I was younger, I didn't think this game was all that bad. I thought it was just kind of mediocre, but nowadays I would say the game is bad and you shouldn't play it. The main theme is the best part of this game. And I wouldn't have Sonic and the Black Knight on here either. I actually think that game controls a hell of a lot better than Secret Rings, and is just a better game overall. I know I'm usually a Sonic defender, but you'll never find me defending Secret Rings. Except the music, man. The music is so good. Who's gonna rock the place? Place. So here's another one that I'm sure plenty of people are going to be up in arms about, and it is the original Star Fox. The original Star Fox was revolutionary when it comes to computer graphics. It had these crazy polygons that had never really been seen before, and the game's perspective was also pretty fresh, all things considered. But if you come back to this game nowadays, oh boy, you are in for a game that very much feels like it was made in the early to mid 90s. First off, the frame rate, just take a look at it. It's practically a slideshow the entire time. And obviously back then, we didn't really know anything about frame rates, not like how we do nowadays. But we don't live in the mid 90s anymore. We live in the mid 2020s, and this isn't exactly appealing to the eye. But if you're able to get past the slideshow frame rate, you have a still pretty competent rail shooter that does absolutely have its moments. And you can still have fun with this game, which really is just a testament to the core moment-to-moment gameplay's quality, that it can look as primitive primitive as it does, runs and controls as terribly as it does, and yeah, you can still have fun. It's still fun to blast everything in sight and try to explore all the paths and get as many points as possible. Really, when it comes to why the original Star Fox hasn't aged all that well, it's mostly down to technological advances. And again, you might go, well, that's not really fair. This was like the best that they could do at the time. This was incredibly revolutionary and innovative. As we've already discussed, time really is not fair. Like, it's never fair to anybody. Life, a lot of the time, is not fair. And so, yeah, it's not exactly fair to go back to the original Star Fox and go, wow, look at this old, outdated game. But the truth is that if somebody in 2025 went back to the original Star Fox for the very first time, yeah, it'd be a little hard to come back to. It doesn't change the fact that the game is still an absolute legend, it's a classic, and it started one of Nintendo's most iconic series. It just simply hasn't aged all that well. You know what I do think has actually aged pretty decently though? Star Fox 2, which finally did get released after many, many years, and Star Fox 64. I love Star Fox 64 to pieces, but the original Star Fox, I don't got a lot of love for this one. And I'm sure plenty of people are going to go, oh, that's just a Gen Zer, he doesn't get it. Back in the day, this game was awesome. Yeah, back in the day. We're talking about now, in 2025, where the game still absolutely is good. It's just aged. So here's one that always seems to upset people with the original Kingdom Hearts. Now, I love the original Kingdom Hearts. I have some great memories with this game, like when I played through it on my PS2 in the summer as a kid. But coming back to it nowadays, oh yeah, the original Kingdom Hearts has not aged well in a number of aspects. The first thing to bring up is the controls. It just does not control anywhere near as well as Kingdom Hearts 2 or subsequent titles. It feels incredibly slow, sluggish, and just kind of awkward. The platforming feels just straight up terrible in this game. It's like delayed as well, and Sora's Keyblade swinging has never felt good. It also feels just rather clunky and delayed, and what attack are you doing the most? Probably the Keyblade swinging. It all can just feel rather cumbersome and tedious, especially nowadays. Maybe back in the day they didn't notice since this kind of action RPG combat was like exceptionally rare, but nowadays this combat really just has me going yuck. The control, movement, and general feel just have me going yuck. To make matters worse, the camera is just straight up awful, consistently putting itself in a terrible position that genuinely makes the game harder than it should be. This game in general is harder than it should be because it just hasn't aged well, and it only gets worse the further you play through the game, with the final fights being not only incredibly annoying but actually decently difficult. The level design also hasn't aged particularly well. It's not super obvious where you're supposed to go. I remember frequently getting lost, and at times even having to look up a walkthrough because the game just does not do a good job at instructing you on where you're supposed to go or what you're even supposed to do. And then when they throw a bunch of platforming in there, it just gets worse and worse, man. I hate the sloppy platforming. Look, the original Kingdom Hearts has aged well in a number of areas. I think the story's still really great. The game has a ton of charm, some really good music, and it is vibes that none of the other games have been able to capture. But coming back to it in the modern day, you're really gonna struggle with this one. Unless, of course, you've already played through it, then this will probably feel like second nature. But as somebody who genuinely really does like the Kingdom Hearts series, I find it very hard to come back to the original. I'd rather play almost any other Kingdom Hearts game. Almost any other Kingdom Hearts game. You can get some of those spin-offs the hell out of here. So here's another one that I'm sure some people are going to disagree with, but we have Wolfenstein 3D. Now, Wolfenstein 3D was obviously a landmark title for first-person shooters. It changed the game literally. First-person shooters have never been the same since. Obviously, Doom would go on to also really revolutionize things, but you can't deny the impact that Wolf 3D left. However, if you come back to this game nowadays, what you're going to find is a game that, yes, revolutionized first-person shooters, but it's also not the most enjoyable first-person shooter nowadays. Look, obviously id Software didn't really have any other games to go off of. They were pretty much working in the dark here, and for that, we're always going to applaud them. We're always going to commend them and thank them for really kickstarting this entire genre, one of the most popular genres in all of video games. But man, the original Wolfenstein 3D has not aged particularly well. As you would guess, the controls are incredibly stiff, quick movements just isn't really a thing, and I don't think anyone would argue that the gunplay feels exciting or anything of the sort. But these honestly aren't even my biggest problems with the game. You can get over those. My biggest problems with this game, and where I don't think it's aged all that well, is how hit scan the enemies are, their placement, and just the general level design. The enemies can absolutely wreck your shit very easily. All they have to do is look at you, shoot, and you're going to get hurt. It's as simple as that, which obviously isn't the most fair, but it's not exactly unheard of. Plenty of other shooters have this as well. What really amplifies this problem is their placement. You'll walk into a room and there'll be like 3 or 4 enemies all in different corners of the room, and you can't exactly look quickly either. You're going to get hit. It's virtually impossible to not. You just won't be able to take them all out fast enough, and they'll get you in their sights and they'll start shooting. The only way to avoid this is slowly walking into the room, getting their sight, walking back, and then funneling them in the door. Then you'll actually be able to take them all out in time, but you absolutely should not have to do this. This is just unreasonable. The enemy placement is just total bogus in this game, and the further you get through it, the worse it gets. And then on top of this, the level design at times is just absolute trash. Let's not mince words here. It's just a straight up maze. Like, it's ridiculous. There's that level where it's literally just swastikas together. This shit can just get so confusing, and almost all of the rooms look the same. Obviously, graphics were pretty limited there, so I can't really dunk too hard on it. But nowadays, it just makes for such an unenjoyable experience going through the same looking rooms over and over and over, hoping you're going the right way, but you can't be too certain because all these rooms look so similar. The game has plenty of hidden walls where it's not actually a wall, it's a door and you go into a secret room, but sometimes the game decides to be funny and locks main progression behind these hidden walls, so then you're just walking around interacting with every wall, seeing if you can move forward. And this, shrimply put, just is not fun. I've never enjoyed this, and I think the level design of Wolfenstein 3D just really isn't that great. It becomes incredibly tiring, and by the end of it you're just exhausted, ready for it to end. Obviously, the game still has its moments, and I would say that it is a good game everybody should try at some point in their life. Just know that it hasn't exactly aged the best. So here's another one that people commonly point to as not aging particularly well, and that is the original Witcher. Now, funny enough, I remember trying the original Witcher in the early 2010s, and I didn't even think it aged well then. Trying to play it nowadays, oh yeah, this game has just aged terribly, straight up. I will say though, before we get into that, the game has actually aged well in a few areas. I actually quite enjoy the presentation and aesthetic. It gives off that very Eurojank mid-2000s vibe that I can't get enough of, and the game has some nice environments. I also think the story and writing are also pretty great as well. I think the story's really intriguing, and I think it's really cool to see a younger Geralt here. But that's about where the compliments end. When it comes to actually playing The Witcher 1, that's where it just kind of shits the bed in my opinion, particularly with the combat. I know some people do enjoy the combat and by extension the gameplay, but I have never liked this. And what's funny is I've met plenty of people who think Witcher 2 and 3 have really janky and clunky combat. Oh, they haven't seen the original Witcher with these 3 stances and what is ultimately just some of the most unenjoyable, unintuitive, clunky combat you will find from any game in the mid-2000s. This is not fun, this is not engaging or entertaining, this just felt like a chore through and through. It was single-handedly why I dropped the game. When I was in combat, I wanted to do just about anything other than combat, and the game very much forces you into a lot of combat. There was also the level design and side quests that kind of felt generic, but I didn't really play enough of the game to fully assess that. I just know combat and Jonathan go about as well as IRS and Jonathan. They do not, which is why I'm so glad that they're actually remaking The Witcher 1. I can't wait for the remake. I would love to see this game with like Witcher 3's gameplay, or maybe even something better, because this original release, it's like the most Eurojank thing imaginable, and CD Projekt Red have come such a long way since then, and this is one of the few remakes that actually get me a little giddy inside, with Dino Crisis of course. And so at this point I would say just wait for the remake. It's going to be way better than what this original game has. There's no way the remake is worse than this. And then to finish things off, you know we gotta go with the low-hanging fruit of GoldenEye 007, the original N64 release to be exact. I've talked about this game plenty of times before, and my stance really hasn't changed all these years later. I think the game was incredibly revolutionary, it still has its moments, the multiplayer is a lot of fun, but it hasn't aged particularly well. Thankfully, the game has actually been re-released in recent years, and those re-releases are quite a bit better than that original N64 release. But even then, there's still some areas where I think the game hasn't aged as well as it could. The level design has never been my favorite, to say the least. I often find myself getting rather lost, especially if you play on the harder difficulties with more objectives. So maybe it's just a case of mad cause bad. I've never loved the shooting. While some of the guns feel nice, it's never felt all that satisfying. The stealth is just a total joke, and the game's presentation really does not help out things. Sometimes this game is just so damn blurry and I can barely even see what I'm shooting at. I'm not even being hyperbolic here, it really does get blurry as shit, and the draw distance kinda sucks, and it only makes the guns feel even more imprecise. And then of course the game doesn't control like a normal first-person shooter. It's certainly got a learning curve to it, and I know plenty of people who just never really got over the learning curve and only stick to the re-releases, and you know, I can't blame them. And of course something that will never help out the control or the shooting, or really the game in general, is its inconsistent frame rate. Sometimes it's an absolute slideshow and it can be even harder to tell what's going on. And there were plenty of moments where I was just like, shit, I might as well be playing blindfold. There's so much shit going on, it's running so terribly, and it's just so damn hard to see. And then of course, even with all of this, the checkpoints are just kinda horrible in this game. Usually if you die, you have to start the whole damn mission over, which can be 15-20 minutes at times. That's totally not irritating. Yeah, there's a few reasons why I think GoldenEye hasn't exactly aged the greatest. I still think the game has plenty of merit, I still think it's fun, I still think the multiplayer is great, and those modern re-releases actually do address some of my issues with it. But don't expect to roll up to this game in 2025 and expect it to be the smoothest experience, or an exactly timeless experience either. It's aged. All of these games have aged. No game is truly timeless. Every game is going to age, good or bad. These were just 10 games that haven't exactly aged the best. I'm sure I've already upset plenty of people, so let me know down below how you're upset. And if you made it to this part of the video, you can comment our code word, upset. You'll get a little heart from me. But regardless of whether or not you like the video, I hope you have a tubular day. Stay safe, y'all. Bye-bye.